Greeting, friends. We continue our small group series on simplifying life and living generously. I'm joined by my good friend and colleague, Amy Jo. She's the director of our children ministry at our church. Amy, thank you so much for being with us. As we do this series, I'm sure some folks may ask, why is this important for young people like children and youth? They're not making any money. Why do they need to know about financial generosity? And when we hear maybe reflections like that, how might you respond to that, Amy Jo?
Well, they will be making money someday.
That's right.
We hope. We hope they're not living in our homes forever. But they do watch what parents do, and they will be. Parents are going to be modeling what we hope our children will learn from us one day. And I've always been a firm believer in, even as young as 2 and 3 years old, children can learn what it means to share and what it means to give. And I think a lot of times parents think in that 2-year-old stage, everything is mine. But they do learn what giving is, and they learn about what it means to share. And early on, we need to teach them that everything comes from God, and it's not mine, it's really God's, and He blesses us with everything we have is a blessing from God. And we want to honor God by sharing it with other people. And we can teach that at a very, very young age. And there's many, many ways that we can do that.
I love that. So they meaning young people, may not fully grasp the value of $1,
Yes.
but they're seeing, witnessing, and learning about giving and sharing really as soon as they have concept of just things in general. Yeah.
That's where it starts. And then as they get older, they'll start learning, because they already have that seed planted of sharing and giving. Then you can equate that to money when they can start understanding what money is.
Right. I tell you, although we're talking about children, I think this is a lesson that might be even pertinent for grown-ups as well,
Yes.
Absolutely. So what are some of the ways in which at our church in the past, and certainly in this fall as we go on our church-wide journey together and growing in generosity, that we've done to disciple our children in ways of their capacity to be generous?
We do encourage, even our youngest ones, we encourage them to bring an offering, and we try to talk about what that means. They see their parents and other adults putting money in the offering plate, and we try to explain to them what that is. Even at a young age, we say, this is to give Bibles to our 3rd graders, and this is to send our youth on mission trips, and this is to help when our mission teams go to other countries and help other people build a church in another country. And we try to explain to them what that money is used for. This is to buy a rocking chair, maybe in the nursery, so that we can rock a baby while their mom and dad go to worship. So they can understand that if you explain to them what that quarter or that dollar might be in the offering plate. And once they understand that, they want to put that money in the offering plate. And then as they get older, they can start to understand what that means. And they want to earn a little money on their own. They don't always want to take mom and dad's money. And then it's beautiful to watch them have a lemonade stand in their driveway and in their yard, or we have a lot of children that are older elementary children who will forego having birthday gifts so that they can raise money for Zoe, or they can raise money or ask for book bags to go to Marie G. Davis. And it's a beautiful thing to watch that start happening as they get older. One of my favorite things to do is with our older ones is during stewardship season, usually in October, we have a lesson and teach them about how to understand 10%, because they hear that phrase as they get older. And so we talk to them about taking money and saving some and spending some on what you need to spend it on. And maybe there's a toy you want, maybe there's a book you want. And so what it means to divide those out. And so we talk about the 3 different ways that they could divide it out, save and spend and have a goal in mind. And they start to understand that. And parents can make it fun. They can have little boxes for the money, or little envelopes, or little jars. And children start to do that, and it's a life lesson we hope that they'll carry through their adulthood.
Yeah. So as you were talking about child witnessing and seeing parents give, whether it be on a Sunday or in other forms of generosity they've seen over the years, as a child, and I've shared this story before, Amy Jo, and maybe I've shared it with you. I remember I was given what's equivalent of a dime now every Sunday to put in an offertory plate. And on a particular Sunday, apparently I had gotten older. My parents gave me a 50-cent coin instead of a dime. And I remember thinking, that's a 500% increase. And I just could not put that coin in the offertory plate. And when my parents saw my hesitation, they kind of shared the why. And you just mentioned that. I love that it's not only habit and discipline of doing, which is really important, but also understanding the why this is important. It was important for me and what's important for our community of faith. Yeah.
Yes.
So many creative ways to do that work together at home and both here at the church. So I know the passage that you and I discussed for today's session comes from Luke chapter 12, selected passage from that. I think it's a pretty familiar passage to many of us. Can you share some of your reflection on the passage from Luke chapter 12, verses 32 to 34, I think, and parts of 48?
So my favorite parts of Luke 12 are verse 34, where it says, "For where your treasure is, there your heart is also." And that part is, I think, relevant to everyone, no matter what age you are, even for children, all the way up through adulthood, because I think we tend to spend our money on maybe what we love the most. And if we love reading books, we're probably going to spend our money on books. If we love to travel, we're going to spend our money on travel. And I think a lot of people sometimes get confused about what to give that 10% to. Maybe they love a certain charity, or maybe they had a family member pass away and they want to give their money to a certain organization. And for me, I've always sort of felt like, well, my church is my 10%, and then anything over the 10%, I would probably give to another organization. And of course, that's personal preference. But I think children can understand that what's important to them, what's in your heart. And then you start to build from that everything you have is a gift from God. And so we want to give back. God gave us this. God gave us all these wonderful things, and our family and our house and our friends. And so we want to honor God by giving back. So we want to give to the church. And then after we do that, we can pay our bills. And then after that, then we can spend a little money that we have left over and maybe buy a new toy or maybe buy a new book. And I think that having that generous heart from the beginning and teaching children about that, we will grow up as adults to always have generous hearts.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking some really transformative kind of theology of treasure, right? So,
yes,
Amy Jo, I think you're right on the money there about when it comes to spending our financial resources on our treasures, it doesn't seem like a lot of money because that's our treasure. And so what we're doing in our children ministry and youth ministry, really all ministry, is we are trying to shift the very treasures that we hold to be true in our lives so that the treasures that we hold to be dear in this world kind of matches the treasures of heaven.
Right.
So that then the ways in which we give aligns with kind of the values of God. And in doing so, maybe giving won't hurt so much, right?
Right. So I don't know if you noticed the order of priority. I mean, like,
Right.
I think it's sort of like God and church should be first, and then your family, and then maybe your friends, and then maybe, what's next as priority, and what are your treasures in life. And I think sometimes we flip it, we get it confused.
Right.
And God should always be your first treasure, because we are certainly his first treasure.
Oh, I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. And how you started that kind of whole conversation of treasure, you said all things belong to God. And I
Mhm.
think if that's our starting point, then we don't feel so cringy about sharing because it's not mine to share. It's actually God given to
Yeah.
be shared.
Right.
The ownership shifts from mine to God's, and I'm only the stewards of what God has given
Right.
me.
And
Boy,
that's
if we can
also,
just remember that all the time, that'll
yeah,
make
it's also an easy transition to help children understand also that they have we get into the time, talent, and treasure,
Mm,
but we also help them understand that we also have God-given abilities, God-given talents, and we should use those for God's glory as well.
mm,
The other part of the verse that I like so much is verse 48. From everyone to whom much has been given, much will be required. And from the one to whom much has been entrusted, even more will be demanded. And for me, that has always meant God will bless you with a lot in your life. And you need to be grateful and thankful for that and take good care of what he's entrusted you with, whether that's your family, whether that's your home, whether that's your children. And he's giving us all of the gifts that we have. So take good care of it. Treasure that.
mm,
Treasure your treasures that he's given you, but
mm.
treasure most of all your relationship with Jesus, and make that your priority, and everything else will just fall into place.
Yeah, yeah. Make your first thing first, and then the rest will
Yes,
be-
yes,
And it seems to me, I've certainly, gone ups and downs in my kind of financial journey, and in times when I was very much low in my financial security. To your point, Amy Jo, there were those who had far more than I did, who then shared it in such a way that both of us could be secure in our journey moving forward financially. So that resonates strongly with me, that if we're given a lot, we're also given the responsibility to then to be good stewards of that, so as to take care of each other, and
right.
to prioritize the ministries of God.
Yes.
Wonderful, wonderful. I wonder what and there's no answer to this, but I often do think that so much of my discipline in ways of financial generosity, it didn't happen when I became quote unquote an adult, or started earning my income. It really started when I was in children ministry. I mean, that's where it really shaped and formed my theology. Although I would have never said theology at the time,
No,
but that's what it was. It
right.
shaped my theology, it shaped my habits, it formed my treasures early on. So, and that I got to give thanks for that, because it would have been so much harder to do that work the older that I got. Yeah, yeah. So, Amy Jo, any other things that you like to share with us in ways of lessons about um, generosity and growing our capacity to give, to receive, and to be with one another?
I would just say that children are watching us, and
Mm,
that we need to go back maybe to what you just said, go back to what we remember, because it really is simple. I think sometimes we try to complicate it, but it really is simple, just to put what's first, and God is first. And um, I think sometimes we forget that everything comes from God, and that's our first priority. That's where we should put our treasure, and honor him in all that we do and say, and everything else will be as it should be.
yeah. And maybe because I do believe, and I have found to be true, that children do better with the very topic that we're talking about, given the opportunity. And Amy Jo, maybe it is because they tend to not complicate things like maybe we do. And I don't know about others, but for me, when I find myself overcomplicating anything, then that's a warning sign for me.
Right.
Like, oh,
You just reminded me about something. I think another thing we don't always do is include children in the decision making or in the
mm,
process.
yes, yes.
And I think sometimes we should ask children if there's something that the church is trying to raise money for, like what do you think we could do? And they might say a lemonade stand, or they might come up with a great idea. And so sometimes it's easy for people just to write a check, but maybe your children want to do something special. Maybe they want to bake pies. Maybe they want to sell donuts. But include them in the process. Let them know why we're doing it, and see if they have any ideas, because then they really will understand better about why we're doing it. And tell them what it's for. I mean, if you're raising money for Zoe, or you're raising money for a new building, tell them why it's important to you and why we're doing this, and let them share their ideas. Let them be a part of the process.
Love it. Love it. Yeah, because they are. They're
They
part of the
certainly
process.
are.
Yeah. Thanks be to God. Well, Amy Jo, thank you so much for sharing your time and your ministry with us as you lead and guide and bless our young people and the church as a whole as we journey together in faith. Grateful for this time together. Thanks be to God, friends.